Activate Your Introvert, the weekly show to help leaders build performance by understanding introversion. In this week's show, how to market yourself without being pushy. And that applies whether you're employed or self-employed, and it's something I've had many requests about. How to build a community, and why some people don't like the trendy thing about tribe building, which is many introverts, by the way. And this all comes out in a discussion with Denise Fay. Denise is a community builder. She helps business owners get clear on their marketing message to create a community of raving fans. Question of the week: does introversion have real causes, or is it just learnt behaviour? Before speaking to Denise, a quick request for your help. Press pause. No, you don't normally get asked that, of course, and I've just done it again. But if you're enjoying understanding more about introversion and leadership from the show, I want you to help so that others can benefit too. You can help by pausing the recording, going to iTunes or your own podcast provider, and giving the show a review, hopefully 5 stars. The algorithms then help more people to see the show and listen to it. Thank you. In the news this week, slugs and snails are being rebranded. The Royal Horticultural Society says that the gastropods should not be referred to as pests. Only a small minority of the species are a threat to garden plants. They perform a vital role in clearing up dead material, as well as providing food for hedgehogs and birds. It suggests they should be described instead as garden visitors. I'm not sure if that's renaming or reframing. And it's a great question I'll ask Derek Arden next week. Derek and I will be talking about reframing, what it is, how it's relevant to negotiation skills, life in general, and introversion. Also in the news, according to the Times of India, a bride-to-be in India refused to marry her prospective husband when she noticed he was wearing a wig. During the ceremony, she became suspicious that the groom was repeatedly adjusting his traditional headgear, at which point a guest informed her that he was actually bald and wearing a wig. The bride fainted. Later, when she regained consciousness, she refused to marry him. When I thought about this one, it reminded me of some of the internet dating I've done in the past. No, I didn't internet date bald men, but where people don't come over as their true selves, particularly on their first date or two, because they're trying to appear differently. I've seen it happen in job interviews and when salespeople have met potential new clients, and they're later accused of misrepresenting the offer. The relationship doesn't work when there's a difference between expectation and reality. Owning your true self is something that comes out in my discussion with Denise later, and it might be something that's important for introverts to consider. And finally, I'm going to keep up the dinosaur theme from last week. My favourite creatures have been discovered to be older than dinosaurs. As you know, I love being underwater, and the most amazing creatures to watch are octopuses. So I was impressed to see in The Guardian that the oldest known ancestor of an octopus has been unearthed in Montana in the form of a 330 million year old fossil. This, of course, has nothing to do with introversion, although most octopuses I've ever watched are highly intelligent, seemingly shy creatures, very skilled at blending in with their environment. So perhaps there's a connection after all. Or, more to the point, it's probably time to talk to Denise. Welcome, Denise.
Hey John, how's it going?
All good, thank you. And how about yourself?
I'm not too bad now, not too bad.
Brilliant. So we're going to talk about communities, how to build communities of raving fans. But just before we dive into that, are you an introvert, an extrovert? And more to the point, what does that mean to you?
I am an extrovert. Years ago when I did my When I was in my corporate life, we did the Myers-Briggs. And I guess for me, it just means I get energy from people. I love being surrounded by people. It just gives me a really good buzz. Do I think to talk or talk to think? I probably talk to think. So that for me would be an extrovert.
I'd agree with both of those definitions, partly because they're ones I often use. So tell us about communities and tell us about this way of marketing, because certainly I hear a lot nowadays about tribe building, and I know, as I said earlier, many introverts kind of shudder at the idea of a tribe. What's here is the difference, and why should people focus on community?
For me, community means communication with unity. And if you look at the word community, so I love communicating clearly, and then I love people coming together as like-minded souls. And so if you put those two together, got communication and unity, so you get community. So if you start with that idea of surrounding yourself with like-minded people, with people of similar values, in terms of a marketing sense, you'll get a better sense of like marketing to the right people. It doesn't matter what community you're building, but you'll get more results. People will relate to you a little bit more. You'll relate to them. There'll just be this kind of almost goodwill sense, a high energy vibe going on. You build relationships, and then ultimately you'll get those referrals that you want from your raving fans. So that's really from my perspective of what community is.
Does it help you, do you think, to market yourself without being pushy? Or have you got to be pushy at some point?
Oh God, no. For me, and I suppose that's where I'll always start. I know we're talking about community, but let's just kind of back up a little bit, right? If you're to market with your own message and be really, really clear on your marketing message, and you stand in your own power with your own unique factor, I call it your you factor, that's how you get to attract people. So there's nothing pushy about it, because what you're doing is you're just marketing yourself. Strengths and weaknesses, foibles and strengths and all that kind of stuff. But whatever it is, it's all about you. And I know there's like so many cliches and be yourself because everybody else is taken. It's one of my favorites. I think it's Oscar Wilde. But it's so true that if you stand and you own your own difference, and you're proud to own your own difference, that in itself will make marketing so much easier. It's a really good foundation to build your basis on, like your business on, or indeed if you're an employee, to build that level of your career on. Because if you just stay true to who you are and don't go with the crowd, that makes a massive difference, because it's just the energy that you send out, but the words that you use, and people will start like using the words that you have. And that's how you don't become salesy, because you come from a place of service as opposed to sales.
By focusing on you, which of course sometimes doesn't feel comfortable for many people, but by focusing on you, because what I understood you to say is you're then being true to yourself. The words that you're using are the words that other people can either find attractive or useful, but because you've got that clarity on who you are, other people like you with similar values, I guess, are going to be attracted.
Correct. Even if I know we're obviously on the Introvert show, but if you just looked and you kind of asked yourself, what energizes you? I mean, like running energizes me. So it's part of my brand. It's going to be like even more part of my brand. And I love running marathons. And so that's part of like what energizes me. Talking to people energizes me. Having a glass of wine energizes me.
Go with that one.
Yeah, maybe not in the morning time, right? So it doesn't matter whether you're introvert or extrovert, but if you think about what energizes you, because then you'll start talking about it. And then for you, it doesn't really matter whether you're introvert or not, whether you're writing about it or speaking about it, you'll find people who have a common interest and a common idea. And then that's where you kind of build that foundation of you have something to relate to. And then you can take it from there, because that way then you're becoming more of you, as opposed to sending out like, cliched, we are an accountant firm of accountants that love accounts, something that's really kind of trivial and boring.
So exciting, man. We're a firm of accountants who like accounts.
Yeah, okay, so probably not the right example, John, but that kind of stuff. I don't want necessarily people to do any kind of major introspection, but if you look at just even that one, just what energizes you, and actually take that from a marketing perspective, and then just kind of pull that out and start working and writing on that, that's how you could actually start attracting people.
So a couple of things came out of that while you were talking. One was, for me, you mentioned it could also be valuable for people that might not work for themselves. They're developing their career within large companies. Would that be fair, or did I mishear?
Yeah, if you think about it, we're all kind of told to create our networks and go networking. And, it's like, God, that's kind of really hard, depending on how you look at it. But if you look at it from people building their career, like gather a community around you. There could be like a previous boss, there could be somebody from a different department, there could be somebody from all walks of departments within the organization that you're part of. And if you have, like, again, it goes down to like, key values, what you talk about, what you resonate with. It all comes down to relationships, John. And actually that's the key one. It comes down to relationships that you have with people. So even though you think that the cleaning lady may not be able to give you any referrals, or the cleaning lady might not be able to help you in any way, but if you build a relationship with that person, you just don't know who they know. And so I've always done it for my own corporate life. I would have talked from like the people who opened the door to the CEO in practically the same way, because it comes down to respect, I suppose, but it also comes down to building relationships. And so I think that if you kind of start, looking at things a little bit differently, and how you relate to people and how you kind of resonate with people and what you've got in common with, that makes a huge difference in terms of your career.
If you're building a community, I guess you want to be attracting the right people. How do you decide who are the right people for your community?
I think it's very clear that if you're with the wrong people, and I'll actually honestly admit, and this is a mistake, we all learn from them, but you know what, and I'm just going to backtrack to answer your question, so I will answer it, John. When I first started my business, my marketing business, I worked with like kind of anybody that had a pulse, anybody that had a wallet, I suppose, that was willing to market. And some people I'm still working with, and then a lot of people I'm not. So I think the importance of working with the right people and gathering the right people around you is really, really important. And that is the same thing for attracting your ideal client or your ideal community. I think that's really, really important. So if you were to start looking at who do you decide comes into your community, do you get the decision or do they get the decision? So I think it has to kind of be a common thing. I suppose if you were the one, and if you're an employee, right? So say you're kind of building a community as opposed to say a network, that would help you go, you know what, I really like that person, and I really like that person because XYZ. And so I suppose so if you're putting them into their community, but then there's going to be people who will want to be part of your little circle of friends or your inner circle. And so don't be afraid to have like an inner circle kind of community and then an outer circle as well, because it's still all part of the community that you're building.
So community building then is about marketing yourself without being pushy. It's about understanding your own values and attracting people with like values. You also said, though, it's about raving fans. Expand on that one a bit for me.
Yeah, look, I think we're all part of groups. And, if you talk to people, they'll say, yeah, I'm in this kind of group and I'm in that group and it's all great. But there's no, say, common ground, common objective. So I gave a talk a little while ago, and I was talking about getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, because it was an online fitness group. I remember texting a friend of mine, and we're after doing burpees, presses, all this kind of stuff. And I said, oh my God, I'm so dead, but it was great. And so the common area for that was that we're all trying to become stronger, become better athletes. Not that I'm an athlete by any stretch of the imagination, right? But we're all kind of having a common goal, and we're all willing to support each other. So I'd be like, oh, I feel really bad today. So say you text me, John, and go, come on, Denise, you're doing great. Let's actually, keep it going. So I think there's that common ground and a common objective. So whether it's to grow a business, say, I know even in my own Achievers Club community that we have, everybody's looking to run a business, but to make an impact. And that's the common ground and the common area. So I think when you have something like that, that's when you create a community of raving fans, as opposed to just a community of, hi Denise, hi John, it's Monday, we're all here together, and that's great.
So the point about having fans is you're more likely to support them, they're more likely to support you.
Correct, yeah.
How do you see this difference to tribe building?
Yeah, I'm not a big lover of the word tribe. It just kind of brings up either a patriarchal or a matriarchal society idea, if you go to its true sense. So I'm not really gone on the whole archetypal structure. So I think for me, community is people just kind of working together, common goal, really supporting each other, and just having a little bit of fun, because life is going to be difficult enough. So if you actually find a community of like-minded, and it could just go like, we're talking community in terms of a business sense, but look at a book club, like that's a community. We've got a book club. I set it up on our road.
So next question then. If I'm an introvert and I'm looking to start to market myself a bit more, what would you say?
First step is just be yourself. Try not to be anybody else. Actually, there's going to be 2 tips. You put me on the spot here, John, for making me just have one spot, but just own your difference is really what I'd say, because that's the bit that's going to attract the right people to you.
If I was a manager, and perhaps I've got a team of people that work for me, or a leader with a number of teams, how would I encourage, shall I say, the quieter people in my group to market themselves?
I think what I would do is I'd see what energizes them. Have a conversation about maybe what's their hobbies, what other stuff that they will do outside of work, because that's what could really, really engage and energize people. So I know introverts get energy from different ways than extroverts, but whatever energizes your introverts, find out what that is and see if you can build up a connection or relationship. Ask people to talk to other similar like-minded people. I know I sound probably like a broken down record, John, but it really all comes down to relationships.
Big thing I took from that is it comes down to understanding each other more, and hence what you just said about focusing on some of the other stuff. No, that's brilliant, Denise. Thank you. If some of the listeners want to get back in touch with you, what's the best thing they could do?
They can head over to achievemarketing.ie. That's my website, or find me on LinkedIn, just Denise Fay on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful.
Thanks, John. I could talk to you all day.
Yeah, indeed. And I think we probably could, and may well do so once we go off air. But thanks a lot.
Thanks, John.
That was a great discussion. So thank you, Denise. And here's my takeaways. I don't know what yours are, but I'd love to see them on the Facebook page. Activate Your Introvert. Number 1, marketing does not have to be pushy, whether marketing your business or yourself at work. But you do need to be very clear on you. Own your true self and be prepared to let others see it. Number 2, community. Very similar to the word communication. I suspect they're both linked to sharing in some way. Number 3, community again. Communication with unity, where people support each other rather than pay homage to a tribe leader. And number 4, building a community is in another way networking, but where you focus on those people you get on with. After all, why would we want to spend time with people we don't like being with? If somebody's got different values to you, you're likely to struggle to get on, but similar values and you're more likely to be happy to support each other. What would you like to know about introversion in business? This week's question comes from Claire. Does introversion have real causes, or is it just learnt behaviour? Like everything, Claire, there's a simple answer and a more complex one. This week, I'm going to tackle one part of your question, and then next week, the other part. It has been shown that there are neurochemical differences between introverts and extroverts. 2 main ones of interest relate to dopamine and acetylcholine. Both are naturally occurring drugs we have in the body. In fact, we make them. Introverts have greater sensitivity to dopamine, sometimes called the happiness chemical. So one theory says we will tire more quickly from external stimulation, or that meeting people, where extroverts want more of it. Introverts tend to prefer a different chemical, acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is also linked to pleasure, but makes us feel good when we turn inward. It's linked to our abilities perhaps to think deeply, reflect and focus intensely on just one thing for a long period of time. That could explain why introverts like calm environments. It's easier to turn inward when we're not having to deal with external stimulation. So, yes, there's some real evidence of the existence of why some people have different preferences and are wired differently. I was recently talking about introversion, communication and neuroscience with Dr. Linda Shaw and Michael Dodd. There's a link to the YouTube clip of that discussion in the sleeve note of this episode, although I'll be talking more about it in the coming weeks. What question would you like answered on the show? Whether you want to be on the show, or just have your question answered like Claire, go to activateyourintrovert.co.uk.
I'm John Baker. Thank you for listening. I hope you found it useful. There's a new episode every Thursday at activateyourintrovert.co.uk and your favourite podcast provider. Till then, go be introversial, activating your introverts, building your business.